A field trip for losers. I have severe allergies. It's to the point where I'd have to use boxes and boxes of tissues just to feel some kind of relief. Luckily now I'm getting shots to treat my allergies and I couldn't feel any better. Anyways, this isn't about how many tissues I could use at any given time. This is a story that I feel the need to share, to be aware of the dangers of. Well, you'll read about it except for me and maybe 4 other kids. My parents knew that I got sick easily and were going through, and still continue to go through, a tough time, and against my protests, I couldn't go. Saying that I was disappointed would be an understatement. Not going meant that I had to go to school, and I hated school. I was sad that my friends would have fun without me, but there was nothing I could do but suck it up and roll with the punches. Be grateful that I at least had food and shelter. Other kids had bullied me for being too poor to go, which was hurtful, but I didn't say anything, with my parents stressed and counselors that didn't care. I was alone on that matter. The week following up to the tensions between rivaling teams skyrocketed. Many empty threats were being thrown. But other than that, nothing too serious happened. They didn't want to be one of the losers staying behind on such a special occasion. My friends, while disappointed that I couldn't go, promised that they would record it for me on their iPods and phones so that I could see how much fun they were having. Thoughtful, ain't it? Anyways, the day before the trip, I was called out into the hallway along with the other 4 kids to talk about all of the fun work we would be doing while they were gone. On a good note, at least we would be ahead and not have to worry as much as they would. I saw some of the kids looking out on us from the classroom, making faces at us and laughing, mocking one of the girls who began to cry. Our teacher didn't care. Lucky us for having us compassionate teachers, am I right? On the day of the trip, I said goodbye to my friends. They essentially had a week away from school, as the travel time would take a good few hours. I watched as the chartered buses pulled out of the school parking lot, people laughing and smiling all the while. Chaperones following suite. A 6th grade teacher led the rest of us to the classroom we would be staying for the rest of the week. Our few days weren't as boring as I may have thought. Hell, I even made a couple of friends. Everything wasn't as bad as the others had told me it would be. It was great until it wasn't. After the week had ended, I headed home excited to hear from my friends, but they never called. I'd assumed that they were too tired from the long drive and went to sleep. I was okay with that. I went to the living room, watched TV, and began drawing. They would call me tomorrow, I thought to myself. The weekend passed with no calls, my mother telling me that they were probably just exhausted from being in the woods for 3 days. Though upset, I understood and would hear from them on Monday. When Monday came around, I skipped gracefully, quotes on gracefully, to my first block. Back to the same old, I muttered. When I arrived at class, a note was taped onto the door that told all of the 5th graders to go back to the classes they were in last week. I didn't understand why I had to go, but assumed that they were tired from the trip. I made my way nervously to the class, unsure as to why I felt this unease. When I arrived, the teacher I'd stayed with had red eyes. Tears falling down her face, a cacophony of wails escaping her lip. She told me to call my parents, that I needed to go home. I asked where my class was, and more tears escaped her sorrow-filled eyes. I called my dad, unsure as to what was happening. When my father picked me up, there was a somber look on his face, one that you would see on the face of a doctor telling you that a loved one had passed away. I asked him what was wrong, but he just shook his head, tears welling in his eyes. He repeated that he loved me over and over again and again. I loved him too. What was wrong? When I arrived home, there was a police officer in the front of our house. I assumed that my brothers had gotten into another fight and that somebody was seriously injured. Did somebody get hurt? I said. Is Mom okay? Ish. My father cut me off. Sam, he paused and took a deep breath. You need to speak with the police, okay? I won't let anything happen to you. I just nodded, unable to open my mouth. When I entered the house, I saw 2 police officers and a detective sitting in my living room. I placed my stuff down and took a seat. A sad smile on everybody's face, including my family. At least they were safe. Hello, Sammy, an officer began. We need to ask you some questions, okay? I nodded, scared that I had somehow done something wrong. Wish that I had somehow done something wrong. Wish that I had, because the news of what happened is far worse. My entire 5th grade class, including the parents and teachers, had packed their things, ready to go home that Friday, and the bus pulled up on time, 6:30 p.m. The students got on the buses and chaperones began to take their children when approximately 4 vans pulled up alongside the buses. Thinking that it was the extra storage, our teachers approached the vans and were promptly shot. Everybody was in a haze. They had too much fun to recognize the danger in front of them. The men packed the teachers into cars and began to murder the rest of the adults, leaving the kids a sobbing mess. a sobbing mess that would fight until the end. They had hijacked the buses and took the kids to an unidentified location. The purpose, however, was plain and clear. They were going to be trafficked. The adults would have their organs sold. Apparently, the teachers were given warnings, but they had assumed that it was a kid playing a prank. The park was closed as apparently kids had gone missing in the past, but our school chose to hide it. A child went missing and was probably going through hell, but our school didn't want a bad reputation, so they hid it. How? I don't know, but we all know that they did, blaming it on the kids for getting lost and going off course, for sneaking out at night. I sat and cried after the story was told, tears clogging up my vision. The worst part of this all was that my friends had kept their promises. I wish they hadn't. The police showed me the recordings, and throughout the videos, you can see kids having fun, laughing, not having a care in the world. If you were to look closer, however, you'd see people that didn't belong. People hiding in trees or bushes. People mixing in with the crowd, and yet nobody noticed it. The very last video still makes me feel pangs of guilt and sorrow. My friends were on the hijacked bus, recording what was happening as screams filled the air. At the last minute, my best friend would throw her phone out of the moving bus, which in turn would land on some grass and would be found later by some travelers. Her last words still echo through my mind. I promised to show you, Sammy. Well, here you go. Oh God, please help us. I'm so scared. We love you, Sammy. We love you. Sammy, we love you. To this day, none of my classmates were found. The organs of the teachers found in patients that needed a kidney transplant or a new heart. We had moved afterward, changed our names and numbers. We moved to the city. My parents found a well-paying job, and I went to extensive therapy to cope with everything. Because the worst part of this all were the words of one of the gunmen, a sickly sweet smile on his face. Aren't you glad that school of yours is easy to pay off? If you liked this video, subscribe and check out this video.